I'm your host, Effie Pilarino, and I have the pleasure to have a great lady with me, Neha Mehta from Femtech Partners. But Neha wears many hats and we'll be discussing about that. Welcome, Neha.
Thank you, Effie. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to connect with you and to be part of this series. Thank you.
Well, I was just looking over the freshly produced list from Innovate Finance of women in fintech. It's always such a pleasure to see the recognition and remind ourselves how many women in different capacities
Yeah.
are really contributing. And the way Innovate Finance is doing it now by very different categories, rising stars, senior people,
Yeah.
policy, and so on. I find great because each of us are in this ecosystem in a different capacity, and of course
Yeah.
it's all as we all know, be it a country, be it a hub, be it the whole world, the ecosystem is required. So tell us about yourself. First of all, you are multicultural in many ways. So tell us where you're coming from, where you studied, where you've lived, where you worked, and where you're at today.
Thank you, Effie. So I am currently in Delhi as we're doing this recording. I was born in Agra, the city of Taj Mahal, and then moved around a fair bit because my father was working in a bank. So we lived in a couple of cities before we ended up in Delhi. So studied in Delhi, and originally my roots are from Pakistan. So it's a good blend to have India and Pakistan coming together. And then I took a job in Singapore, and that's how I started my career as a lawyer in Singapore. Was working for a Swiss law firm, and enjoyed working as a lawyer, but very soon kind of realized that I need a good work-life balance, and working as a lawyer hardly gives you that. So out of sheer, pleasure of finding what lies in store for me, I started working in the hedge fund space, in the private equity space. And very soon I realized that I enjoy working in the financial sector. I was working with the regulators, thoroughly enjoyed the process of, helping them in the advocacy and the regulatory process. And as the years went by, I realized that it's time to change things a bit because I like to experiment with life and with things around me. So I decided to set up my own consulting firm. And it's good that you're talking about Innovate Finance and the initiatives that we see around these days to promote and amplify women's voice, especially in the financial sector. And I'm sure both of us and our audience will also agree that we need to have a far more bigger representation of women when it comes to financial sector. So to achieve that goal to amplify women's voice in the fintech space, I set up Femtech Partners, female in tech, and the journey has just been little over 2 years. But very rewarding because we have managed to work on projects where we are bringing value to women and youth who are, absolutely unbanked and underbanked, trying to bring them into the financial ecosystem. Besides that, I also work with UNDP as an SDG expert, and I have also, taken up projects with the UK FCDO. So all along, I think it's been a great time working for myself and at the same time having a social purpose and meaning to it.
I love it when I hear people wearing many hats and choosing to be involved in seemingly different or kind of unrelated projects, but that have a thread, an important thread behind them. So let's talk about each one of these activities that you're involved in right now. In terms of the including more women, is that focused more in the region in Asia? Where is your focus? at this point?
I'm glad that you asked me that question, Effie, because if you talk about the world's unbanked population, which is about 1.7 billion, out of that, 55% are women, and most of them are in Asia. So I think this is it's a huge untapped market, and it's not just for the purpose of business case. So let's do it because it makes sense business wise, but also because when we include women, whether in in an employment sector or in a very organized sector, we see that women bring a lot of emotional intelligence and they are far more better leaders than men. So I think with that aspect in mind, when we are when we are working, especially through the Femtech Partners umbrella, we are focusing on the emerging markets and the developing countries in Southeast Asia and South Asia. Given that I come from India, a lot of work that I'm doing right now is also catering to the Indian market. But in the recent past, we have done work in Bangladesh where we were helping women, especially who are the farmers who have been in the, unemployed slash farming sector. And these women are not able to use fintech solutions. So we were trying to see how we can work with the banks and for that matter with remittance providers, insurance providers to bring all these solutions at their doorstep in their own language so that they can use it without really having access to mobile phone or data for that matter. And sadly enough, COVID has put a full stop or a pause on a lot of these efforts. We're trying to see how we can take business from offline to online, especially for these women, because they are the ones who are not yet introduced to e-commerce, e-payments. So the intent is for them to understand how these things work. To give you an example, right now I have a project with BlackRock. This is part of their CSR project, and they're trying to help the foreign domestic workers in Singapore to be able to use fintech solutions and be more financially inclusive. And it is a good project for BlackRock from a business case perspective. But at the same time, when we talk about the foreign domestic workers, a major chunk of them come from countries like Philippines, India, and Bangladesh. And they are not able to earn that much. They're just earning less than $500 Singapore dollars a month. And for them to send money back home out of that small savings that they make and spending a lot of money on the remittance cost is a huge expense month after month. How can we bring down those expenses for them? How can we make insurance more feasible and cost efficient for them? How can we get them to start bank account and make money on those savings? So we are trying to cater to some of these problems through the interaction that we have with the BlackRock employees. So I think we need more corporates to come forward and do similar kind of projects for the unbanked and underbanked population in the Asian region.
So do I understand correctly that Femtech Partners is not building the technology solution, but rather you are the advisor to and the local presence to see what is needed and how the problem can be solved and addressed?
Spot on, yes. So we are the partners, the local partners. We are helping them with the hand holding. We are introducing them to the right stakeholders and making sure that the project runs efficiently. And we do that by joining hands, because I think, as the old saying goes, that if you want to go far, you should go with your tribe and join hands. So we certainly believe in the power of collaboration and partnership. We don't believe in competition. So we have been working with fintech solutions, which are catering to the markets that we just spoke about. And the intent is to make sure that the solutions are provided efficiently and in a very cost-efficient manner.
Very interesting. So when I hear Femtech Partners, I shouldn't be thinking about the sort of developed world diversity issues that are, on the top of the agenda, but rather financial inclusion and especially catering to women and empowering them with financial solutions, not only for opening a bank account, even for those that may have a bank account, but as you said, don't have the tools to get involved in e-commerce or in general how to grow their network and grow their business.
Absolutely. Yeah. To add on to what you're saying, I think we're also looking at helping the SME entrepreneurs that are women led, because these women entrepreneurs find it very difficult to raise money to get loan from the financial institutions. Because if you look at the collateral that they have to arrange, most of them, the house is under the name of the husband or the father. So if they, as an individual, are trying to raise money, they don't really have any collateral to give to the bank or financial institution. So how do we find a way around this? And these women don't really have any digital footprint. How do they get started? Because they don't have an ID to begin with. So I think we're trying to capture problems which go deep rooted, and then also trying to fight the legacy systems of the banks. So this, I think, if we are looking at the solution part, then perhaps it makes more sense to look at what has happened in Africa in terms of M-Pesa, or what other organizations are doing in Asia to make sure that we can come up with eKYC. We can use social data as an alternative data to make sure that people have some sort of background and a digital ID as well.
And in terms of some of your fintech partners, can you give us an idea, name a few that you've been collaborating at any scale, be it for microloans, be it for digital identity, KYC, cards, or whatever the needs have been of opening a mobile account?
Yeah, sure. So there are a lot of these organizations that are focusing on providing, solutions to the unbanked and underbanked. But at the same time, I wanted to highlight that regulatory aspect is equally important, because the work that I'm doing with the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office of the UK government, they have a prosperity fund which is focusing on the Southeast Asia market. So through that fund, we're trying to work on the technical assistance and capacity building for the regulators, especially the fintech regulators. So we are introducing, the best practices from the UK, whether it's open banking, APIs, or for that matter, regulatory sandbox. So we are trying to work with organizations like the FCA, Innovate Finance, to bring those best practices into these markets. But to answer your questions, to your question about the fintech solutions or the startups we are working with, without giving the names, I would just say that they are in the space of microinsurance, microloans, and especially now that we are working on this BlackRock project, we're trying to explore the Singapore market to see the service providers who can actually help the maids / the foreign domestic workers in Singapore, right? Because we're talking about the multitude of problems. It's not just the fact that they can't raise money, but at the same time, they are facing issues when they have to, send the money back home. So there's a remittance issue as well. So we're exploring corridors like Singapore and Philippines, Singapore and Indonesia. And similarly, I think it's important to talk about enabling women to really have that confidence in them. So we are mentoring these women, especially the young talent who want to be part of STEM, or for women who aspire to be an entrepreneur, so that I'm able to, accelerate the journey into this digital space.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm very impressed with this aspect, the regulatory bridge, if you want, of, transferring the know-how from the FCA to this region to get, all the knowledge and the experience from the regulator in terms of, setting up appropriate regulatory frameworks. I mean, I'm not familiar so much with the region. Is it, for example, our crowdfunding laws or crowdfunding framework, is it developed there? What are the basic sort of missing blocks in the regulatory frameworks there that need to be built in order for you, to sort of leverage all that you're trying to accomplish?
I'm glad that you asked this question because, interestingly, a piece of work that I'm doing right now is on crowdfunding regulation. It's a well documented or regulated field, especially in markets like Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. But the work that I'm doing right now in Vietnam, what we have seen increasingly is the fact that there are a lot of Chinese players who have entered the market. They are actually putting, an app on Google Play Store or Apple Store, and people are downloading those apps and they're using those apps. These are not regulated, not allowed in the Vietnamese market, and they have been thriving. So it has been a big issue, especially for women entrepreneurs, because they have been fooled by these players. And we are intending to work with the regulators to make sure that there's a well-crafted regulation on this. And as you would know that it's a very lengthy process, because you may present a white paper or a series of documents, but it takes a while before anything comes into play, because there's also a discussion period and a consultation period along to it with it. So I think for us, it's important to identify how it's actually impacting women, especially the gender inclusion aspect is very strong in all the work that we do. We want to make sure that none of our work is actually harming these excluded communities in the countries like Vietnam and all the emerging markets in Southeast Asia, because for most times when we are looking at things, we have a lens of how it's impacting, but we fail to see that it's impacting women in a very different way. Like when we talk about COVID, right? We know that it has impacted women adversely. Women have been taken back to 30 years of their progress. And it is only through digital tools and digitization that we can ensure women are able to leapfrog into the digital era. But that's going to take a while. In fact, I was reading a book called Invisible Hands, and it talks about how women are not, considered when it comes to decision-making processes. So it's very important that we wear that lens and look at how it's impacting women, and especially through the work that we're doing in Vietnam. Hopefully, in the next 2 to 3 years, we will be able to see how it's actually impacting women in a better way.
Interesting. And Neha, what is puzzling to me is, I mean, what you said about women being adversely impacted, it's so true even in the developed world. The impact on women is disproportionate in many ways. What about cryptocurrencies, and do you find issues around cryptocurrencies where the regulation, I assume, there in the region also is not shaped and clear? Is that an issue that you find, and problems within the community that you're trying to help?
I think that's a good question, and I would say that every country is different, right? If you talk about India, it's not regulated, or rather, the government has the regulators have gone to say that they don't really endorse it. But I would still see people, my friends, they have been trading in cryptocurrencies. In a similar fashion, when you talk about what's happening in the crypto world, especially with Bitcoin, we have seen the prices soaring up, especially since Elon Musk has entered into the market. He spoke about how Tesla can be bought through Bitcoin. But at the same time, we got to see that there are not enough use cases. And we talk about crypto being used in cafes and Starbucks, but at the same time, it's not like you're able to use it just by opening your wallet and making a payment there, because there is a third party provider attached to it. So I think we are very far from its actual usage in countries like Singapore or Thailand or Vietnam. But having said that, if we talk about the central digital bank currency, CBDC, of course, there's a huge case for that, because now, because of COVID, we're talking about having social distancing and using less of currency. Especially, they want to use digital currency. So the banks have been exploring to have CBDCs. And I know that Singapore and Thailand and Maldives, some of these countries have made huge progress in this aspect. And it remains to be seen whether it can really come down to the usage of ordinary people like you and me. Because if I talk about people of my mom's generation, they don't really understand these currencies and these concepts. It's very alien to them. So I think it will take a long time before we can roll it out and bring that investor confidence in it and for people on the street to be able to use it. So we are still very far from it.
And of course, to also tackle the problem and the huge cost and challenges with remittances, it would mean that we should have central bank digital currencies that are interoperable. So you can, send cross-border and so on. So we are far away from that. However, having said that, the process has started and there's jurisdictional competition clearly in this area. And as we all know, most things happen faster than we like and others don't. It's very difficult to change issues that have been persisting for many
Yeah.
years, clearly.
And I'm sure you would have an extra bit to share because you are in Switzerland and Zug being the hub of crypto, the crypto valley. So you would know what's happening on the ground.
Yes, but it's one thing what is happening within the companies that are building the infrastructure to make things happen, and it's another thing if we are talking about adoption and
Yeah.
the end user, you and me. That's a different aspect, and I'm always interested in whether the original vision of democratizing financial markets, whether it's happening, and it doesn't matter what technology is doing it. It can be the M-Pesa sort of framework that has uses technology to solve a problem in one way, but it can be anything else. It can be blockchain and NII. It can be, I don't know what it can be. It doesn't matter. What's interesting is really the penetration and the impact in the end user. And in this case, we're talking about bringing a large part of our global population up to speed, in a way, upskilling them and enabling them to use these technologies that you and I are using, to send money with minimal FX cost, or, here in Switzerland, we have Twint with an SMS. I can send 100 francs to my daughter who, and it can arrive. These are the tools that we want everybody to be able to use, and not us, the, either, I don't know what's the right term, professional or educated or involved in innovation. So we are far from that. That's clear. So you have a lot of work to do. That is for sure. Neha, what is your big vision for the next 5 years? Before we close, I'd like to hear that. You spoke about the different projects that you're involved in, and also tell us what can we do to support you, even though we are not in the region. And if anybody from the ecosystem wants to collaborate with Femtech partners, because they're also doing something that overlaps, how are you reachable?
Thank you, Effie. It's a very important one. I think we are certainly, everywhere on all the social media, so it's very easy to reach us. But to answer your question in terms of the potential areas or places where they can find us and work with us, I would certainly say that when it comes to fintech advisory, financial inclusion, amplifying women's 50% point of view, women, let's get in touch. Let's talk about it. And at the same time, if corporates are looking to do CSR projects which are focusing on the financial inclusion of women, that's certainly something we would like to explore as well. And my vision for the next 5 years, I would certainly say that if we are able to bring more women to work in the fintech space, if we are able to find more women to, to take the business from offline to online, go digital, and if we are able to bring more women in the financial ecosystem, half the battle won. So we have an uphill task in front of us, but as they say, most of the good things in life are on the other side of fear. So it's important that, every day I pull up my socks and do something which I'm scared of doing. So I often remind myself to be courageous and not give up. So that's something I want to continue doing day after day.
Thank you, Neha. That's fantastic, very inspirational. I hope that soon we will all be able to travel, and I guess we may meet somewhere in Singapore or in London.
That will be a delight. Yes, waiting for the borders to open and hug in person, Effie. It will be good to see you and give you a tight warm hug.
100%, with a cup of tea. It was great having you, Neha.
Thank you, Effie. Cheers to you, and thank you for what you're doing. Thank you so much.